for today. Somebody help you to get there. And the Lord, since we got to see this in our word. All right, brothers, I haven't seen enough tonight. Great problem facing our nation today in the area of race is that it is the black man who, to a large extent, produce the wealth of this nation. The nation doesn't have sense enough to share its wealth and its power with the very people who made it so. I know what I'm talking about this morning. Black man made America wealthy. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land. So as act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic war. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the low end, with a median $50 trillion for slavery alone. Some researchers say 24 trillion through 93 trillion, plus 735 billion recurring. This number doesn't include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Shawn D. Richardson's book, The Black Tax, was published. Nor does it include the cost of Black life, nor does it include the cost of living increases. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. If this is the number you would like to join me in the fight for, email me at friendsofadostv@gmail.com. That's friendsofadostv@gmail.com. Good afternoon on the West Coast. Good afternoon in the Central. Good afternoon on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparationist Perspective, formerly Friends of ADOS TV. Follow on in, family. Making the case for reparations. Making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. And today, family, this is just rich. Shout out to Gerald Higginbotham, Travis Johnson, whom the movement threw away early on because he wanted to march on Selma. Shout out to all ADOS grassroots, ADOX, BOOKCLUB, FBA, B1, whatever you want to name yourself. As long as you bleed an American descendant of chattel slavery or you are in the fight for that, shout out to you. But I got to especially say shout out to Gerald Higginbotham. Lord knows when we were puppies, and he came to one of our meetings, we gave that brother the blues. Honey, we had drank that YC tone scissor and didn't know our heads from a hole in the wall. Gerald Higginbotham came up in there with the little black book in his hand with proof that the Descendants of American Slavery, Inc. was in existence before we got on this ADOS bandwagon. Oh, we gonna make that case today. But I gotta first apologize to Mr. Gerald Higginbotham, who about 18 months ago now came to a town hall meeting for ADOS SoCal when we were all one and threatened lawsuits. He threatened to sue us and kept telling us that Yvette and Toe had co-opted their entire movement and claimed it as their own, all the while refusing to having known who this 84-year-old legend, living legend, he came in there threatening lawsuits. And I mean, we were Yvette loyalists. You know, we just kind of build up this gate. Brother, you talking crazy. We don't know nothing about no Dr. Norris Shelton. Why are you up in this meeting causing confusion? We are ADOS. I mean, we were like fired up and ready to go. And I mean, I am surprised the brother got out of there with his shirt on, because we were hotter than fish grease, everybody. Can you imagine? Now, y'all know how I get when I get hotter than fish grease. Can you imagine about 20 of us at that time saying, what are you talking about? Well, family, the truth has come out. It first came out with Gerald Higginbotham. Shout out to a Son Powell, assemblywoman of the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, the new and improved, untethered, unbothered assembly, because she mentioned you must interview Dr. Norris Shelton. And I'm like, why is that name familiar? Why do I know this Dr. Norris Shelton? Who is this man? And so she starts talking about it. I start putting, the things together, all the points, and the ducks started lining up. And I did one of those, Back to the Future kind of moments. And I remembered Higginbotham. And that's when I recall Dr. Norris Shelton and him coming in there to wheel that book around to these very aggressive leaders, founders of these chapters. You're going to get sued. So when Son Powell mentioned it to me, it just went off like fireworks. This is him. And then Be the Power had the very First Lady of Reparations, Miss Kathleen Parks, who I'm going to bring up momentarily. They had her on their show. So I watched their show, which was awesome. I started taking notes. And then I got to speak to Dr. Norris Shelton. And then he says, you've got to have the First Lady on your show. He can't come on the show for his own personal reasons. I'm not going there. But you've got to bring her on. And it was then, you know how Maury Povich reveals who the father is? I'm silly as ever. It was then that I realized that Dr. Norris Shelton was the father of the Reparationist movement. This brother's got 18 books. I called him up because when I put all of them in my cart, the price tag was like, blew my mind. But the fact that I could talk to him, his humility, his interest in working with all the grassroots, we were so aligned in the way we see this new movement that's being birthed for the reparations that I knew it was nothing but God. I mentioned to him that I'm on a mission to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Hence why I formed the PAC, Equity Advocates PAC, Visit Us. The time for our candidates to raise money is now so that we can really push them hard come 2022. And I told him that I am here to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And he says, have you read my most recent book? I said, no. I told you my introduction to you was a lawsuit being threatened. I've not read any of your books. But now that I know, I'm over here trying to purchase. And he said, well, you just took a line right out of my most recent book, which we'll get into, to tell Pharaoh to let the people go. So when I realized the inspiration that undergirds everything we've been taught in the BBTT space comes from Dr. Norris Shelton, my mind was blown. Family, he's beautiful inside and out, as is the First Lady. And I am going to introduce her to you momentarily. Let me get my shout outs out the way to those of you in Clubhouse. If you're mad because you're like, where is this voice coming from? I'm trying to always be on the cutting edge with my, limited technological experience until I can get the right producer for this show. If you're in the Clubhouse, come over to YouTube, like, share, subscribe so you can see the show live and chat your comments, okay? Shout out to Facebook, shout out to Twitter, shout out to my family that has made themselves known in the chat early. Dark Child Williams was early, 11:34. I love my wife, 0007, 11:35. He came on, okay? Let's go on down. Gibson Eugene, Michael Brown, Naheem Wayel of the Be the Power. Love to you all. Petrolia Moss, Kunta Nyamebe, Asan Powell, who is responsible for how we got here. Okay, I like to give credit where it's due. Debonair One, thank you one and all for joining the live. And so, without further ado, that's right. American Slaves Incorporate, the Renaissance Plan by Dr. Norris Shelton. Petroleum Moss, you are on it, family. You are on it. Yes, and we're going to get into all of it, family. So without further ado, let me bring her up and introduce you before I share a YouTube news clip. Shout out to Shanna Kim, okay, who shared the news clip. And so I'm going to play that after I introduce the First Lady. I'm going to bring her up. Welcome, First Lady of Reparations, Miss Kathleen Parks. It is an honor and a privilege to have you on the Reparationist Perspective, formerly known as the Friends of ADOS TV. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read and brag all about you. I don't know if you sent me anything else, but I'm going to read straight from the website about how incredible you are, so the people will understand that they are in the company of excellence and greatness in this movement. Miss Kathleen Parks is American Slaves, Inc., First Lady of Reparations for Slavery. She is an educator, motivational speaker, and politician. Kathleen is County Commissioner for District C of Louisville, Kentucky. She is also Vice President of the Metro Democrats of Kentucky. Kathleen serves as President of Protest to Progress Incorporated, a 501c3 organization founded by her that focuses on the development of educational, economic, and new entry career initiatives for young adults and female ex-offenders. In 2014, she founded the National Action Network Metro Kentucky State Chapter and is serving a final term as its president. She is the executive producer of the TOP News radio show, Unleashed, a syndicated talk radio show that airs every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that discusses national, regional, and urban news commentary based upon educational, political, and economic interest. Kathleen is an adjunct professor at Bellarmine University and has taught at Indiana University Southeast, Jefferson Community and Technical College, Simmons College of Kentucky, and a P through 12 educator with the DeKalb County, Georgia schools and Louisville Catholic schools. She has taught courses in social justice and civil rights, liberation theology, as well as theater history and music management. Kathleen holds an MA in Arts Administration from Indiana University, Bloomington, and an MAT in Learning and Behavior Disorders from Spalding University. She also completed her coursework toward an EDD, a doctorate in leadership education from Spalding University. For the first time in history, Professor Parks will be teaching American slave history at Bellarmine University in the fall of 2020. Kathleen is a mother and grandmother. She is married and resides in Louisville, Kentucky. Now that's a formal introduction. Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Now, there's a little type of pregnant pause. Let me guys know if that's what you're experiencing, because I told Ms. Parks the show must go on, and I will bring her on the phone over Bluetooth if it becomes glitchy and problematic. I'm not as astute technically on these things as Be the Power is. So that's what I know to do so that we can keep the show going, because it must continue to go on. Miss First Lady, please share with my audience the origins of the descendant of American slaves before I introduce the video of a short news clip talking about Dr. Norris Shelton running in the newly established political party in Louisville, Kentucky of SAVE. Please share what you know about it.
Well, first, let me introduce my connection with the father and the founder of the American slave cultural movement, Dr. Norris Shelton. We first met in 2018, when he was a guest on my Top News radio show in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was introduced to him by Pastor James Elliott, who is the president and chairman of DOXXING, which stands for Descendants of American Slaves Ministerial Alliance. And Pastor Elliott is also a member of my Louisville, Kentucky chapter of the National Action Network. And the National Action Network was really my path that led me on the journey of meeting Dr. Norris Shelton in the first place. And
let me stop you, First Lady.
Yes, ma'am.
What year was that you had him on your show?
2018.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so where was I? So 2018. And so when he appeared on my show, I knew about him several years before, or maybe a year before, because there was a celebration that took place at our capital of Kentucky, and that is in Frankfort, Kentucky. And there was a huge celebration there. And my husband, who's a music producer, we came there, and his song was played there as part of the programmatic activities and that kind of thing. And so the production was excellent. And I saw Dr. Norris Shelton walking around looking like a stately brother. And he had a booth set up with all of his books and everything. And I met him then, but not really personally. But he had America's Little Black Book on his table then, and he was selling it to people that were there as part of the celebration. He was also selling his Renaissance plan, which we'll talk about, emancipation plan, which is the key to us obtaining our reparations in America. And so that's how we met. And when he was on my show, he was talking about the American slave cultural movement and why he founded it in the first place and the descendants of American slaves. And he said to me, you know, Kathleen, he said, we are not African Americans. And I said, what? I said, this man must be nuts. He's saying we're not African Americans. I said, what in the world? Who do I have on my show who's saying that we are not African Americans? And so I said, well, I'm an educator. This man has written, at that time, he had written 17 books or 16 books. The man is a prolific writer. He writes in his sleep. And so he said, well, Kathleen, African Americans are immigrants. And I said, oh, really? Immigrants? He said, yes. African Americans come from the continent of Africa. All right? They come to America, and then they are certified through the United States immigration system. Are you certified? I said, no, not to my knowledge. I'm not a certified African American. I said, my birth certificate when I was born in 1954 says colored. Okay. I said, my understanding is that African American has always been an evolving terminology, and we've been classified as many things. And then he and I engaged in a discussion about how we've been classified as colored, Negro, Black, of course, the N-word. We know that's a universal term that has evolved, and that's a whole nother talk show. We're not going to get into that today. And then, of course, the mass media uses these generic terminologies, Black and brown communities, minorities, colored, all of these terminologies that really don't have anything to do with us as a people. And so as I was communicating with him, I discovered that he founded the American Slave Incorporation in 2001 through the Commonwealth of Kentucky Secretary of State. He has a board of directors. He has a hierarchical structure. And all of this began in 2001. I said, wow. So at that particular
2001.
time, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. 2001. And so after that, he had just written his new book, PhD in the Ghetto. And right after that, he said, well, I want you to come to St. Stephen Church because I'm going to receive an honorary doctorate from Dr. Cosby from Simmons College of Kentucky. I said, oh my goodness, that is fabulous. That's fantastic. I said, you certainly deserve it, because I started reading his books right away and I couldn't put them down. I read the Renaissance Plan. I started reading America's Little Black Book. I said, Dr. Norris, you've got to get, he has a truck. You've got to see his truck, and you've got to see his RV. It's got American Slave ink on it. It's got all of his books that he's written, pretty much all of them. He has a whole library of books. He just completed his 18th book. He's starting on the 19th book. The 18th book is entitled Spiritual. Can you see it? Spiritual Enslavement. Spiritual Enslavement of the American Slave Nation. And it talks about religion and how religion has impacted the American slave culture, or better known to the hip hop culture in America as descendants of American slaves. Or some people have flipped the letters and called it American descendants of slavery.
Bingo.
But whatever, go ahead. Yes.
Let me jump in. So, the very church that hosted our inaugural conference was Dr. Cosby St. Stephen's Church, who also gave the father of the Reparationist movement an honorary doctoral degree.
That is correct. That is correct.
So,
yes.
They understand fully what undergirds the education we've been receiving. Because he knows the ADOS movement. He and Yvette and Antonio Moore put on the inaugural conference in Louisville, Kentucky. And so they're fully aware of Dr. Shelton's work. We just weren't aware of Dr. Shelton's work. I want you to share with the audience, in my conversation with Dr. Shelton, he mentioned that he didn't even formally finish high school, maybe?
That's correct.
At age 6, he got inspired and was told by God, who is also the author through him for these now coming on 19 books that he has published, that at age 6, he told me he got the inspiration, but he's not even, he didn't fit. You tell it. Come on. I'm getting mixed up.
Yes, ma'am. He officially graduated from the 9th grade. But at that point, even his father, from what I understand, his parents understood that he was a genius then, a savant, so to speak, of the American slave culture and nation then. He was a businessman, he's an accomplished businessman. And he received a minority business entrepreneur award in early 2000. Don't hold me to the date exactly, but he was an accomplished businessman, entrepreneur, before he even started writing his books, and was inspired to continue to write these books and the history of the American slave culture in the United States of America. With Louisville, Kentucky being the launching pad, who doesn't even know it, who refuses to embrace it.
Well, let me explain something to you. Now that I know the truth, I'm 40 going north, spreading the word about his extraordinary work. I have purchased about 10 of his books, of which I'll show you his library. But First Lady, I'm going to share the screen right now to read his bio, and then to share with my audience the YouTube news clip of when the descendants of American slaves formed a party and ran him for office. So You're not going to be able to see me or you. I just want to give you a little understanding of why we're about to disappear, because I'm going to share the screen. Okay. So, family, welcome one and all. This is just Rich. Y'all, we done found our daddy. The long lost children have found their father of the Reparationist movement. You know, I feel like doing somersaults if I could. It is just Rich. And I've spoken with him, and he is a beautiful soul who understands that he is the face of God. He is the voice of God. He is the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. And when you allow that God that rested in you on the seventh day and named you the best of all his creation to express through you, you can't hold back. You can't give in. You can't give up. You can't give out. And that's why, no matter how much mud has been slung my direction and continues to be slung, I'm on my square. Let me stop. Y'all know I could go on and on. I could give y'all Sunday sermon, but let me share the screen so we can get back to the First Lady and not detain her. We want her to be rested, okay? She don't want to get all animated like me. Hold on. Stand by. All right, all right, all right. This is Rich. Now I hope y'all see this smooth, beautiful brother. 84 years old. Not sure how old he was when he took this picture. But 84 years old today, and I mean is lucid and still writing books with a 9th grade education. You hear me? That's nothing but God. Let's talk about it. Born in 1937, American Slaves Incorporated founder and president Norris Shelton has lived his life in undeserved discrimination. As an independent entrepreneur, time and again he has suffered the debilitating effects of prejudice and favoritism in the business world. Fortunately, he has learned to survive, and he has many lessons to share. Okay. Okay. Making sure y'all can see this. I'm going back. Recognizing and directly addressing the utter unfairness in personal interaction that permeates America and the negative effect bigotry has on all of those sharing his dark skinned but truly American born heritage. Shelton set out to unravel the mystery of why his people have so long tolerated being treated with less dignity and respect when compared to other ethnic groups in our country. The result is America's Little Black Book. His conclusions will surprise you. In his just published book are observations about the collective birthright of an entire people and their need for self-realization and action. His fresh new thinking and prescription for change could well break the chain of ignorance that has perpetually plagued his people, and as a result, pave the way toward a true racial relations breakthrough in America. So let's go to his books while I have the screen up on him right now. I want to talk about these books. Family, you need to go to www.slaves-usa.com and read all about this richness. And I want you to buy every book. I bought 10. I had to budget, but he was trying to really help a sister out. I said, oh, no, no, no. This is my time. You hear me? This is my time. And your donations to my channel help me to purchase 10 of his books, because I'm going to be featuring some of his work as part of the MISEDUCATION of ADOX in America with 3Ks book club series. Story time. And we're going to start when my books come with America's Little Black Book. You are dealing with the father of the Reparationist movement with a 9th grade education who has given birth to all of these books I'm going to scroll through. America's Little Black Book, Alley Rat, Crabs in a Barrel, American Slaves Incorporated Renaissance Plan. So those are my first 2 books I'm going to focus on. The America Little Black Book and the American Slaves Inc. Renaissance Plan. The Black Name, White Game. Look at how reasonable they are. $16.95 if you buy America's Little Black Book in paperback. And I don't want you doing it through Amazon. I want you to go directly to slaves-usa.com to get your books from him directly. He's marked down everything from $27 to $17. Let's move on. Gatekeepers of the American Dream. This is how you know God is within each and every one of us. And this is why my series, Becoming Your Own Economy, is pulling up the rear. So that we can understand, as we've always known, we're not just waiting for a check. We have been pulling ourselves up from our bootless straps since they dragged us over here in chains to make America great. You hear me? So we're not only going to be focusing on the fight for reparations, we're going to have solutions on this show. And we're going to get through this. They don't get to make us the anchor. We're going to both fight for the reparations and fortify becoming our own economy, both and over here. So we got Gatekeepers of the American Dream, the 7th Seal, American Slave Movement in Real Time, from Clone to Crypt, Black Leadership Eclipse. Y'all might as well get y'all's libations because I'm taking my time and luxuriating in this one. Yes, I am. White privilege, white apathy, white ignorance. The Louisville Metro Council. Cotton comes to America. 400 years of slavery. PhD in the ghetto. American Slave History 101. COVID-19 windfall. Spiritual enslavement of the American slave nation. This is the book where he said he thought I had read it because I told him it's my mission to tell Pharaoh to let my people go once and for all in the trillions over multi-generations. If it took you 400 plus years to anchor us to the bottom, it's going to take you at least 1,000 to make us whole. So let me stop sharing that so I can share this other video. Let me make sure I got everything ready to go. Okay, so we're ready for that one. It's in the queue. What happened? Oh, it wants to do my show at the same time. Lord have mercy. Hold on, family. Let me remove that. Stop the screen. Okay. I'm live in YouTube, so it's acting silly. So let me get that out the way so I can close that down. It might prove more favorable for my reception with the First Lady. Stand by. Let me share again with audio.
Make a claim of becoming a political party, no matter how big or small. WLKY's Dwayne Pullman shows us how a small group in Louisville focused on slavery is now a legitimate party with candidates on this year's ballot.
I am on the battlefield, oh my Lord.
both of a religious and political movement.
We are descendants of American slaves.
The Descendants of American Slaves is officially Kentucky's newest political party.
How are you?
Fine.
Headquartered here at this humble church on the west side of Louisville.
I'm not afraid of the.
That's him, y'all.
Because you told me that you would be with me every step of the way.
The Descendants of American Slaves gathers each Sunday to pray and politic.
You said if I ever needed you to call you. Well, Father, I need you. I need you, Father, because I can't hardly do this by myself.
Retired businessman Norris Shelton hatched the idea, first as a movement.
This is the start of something that should have been done years and years ago.
And now as a political party.
Because of the cover-up of slavery, there is an entire group of people in America who are not being properly represented in our political arena.
Shelton is running for state senate. Henry Owens is running for state rep. Mark Wooten is going for the conservation district. All are on the ballot as members of the Descendants of American Slaves political party. The party's platform is simple. First, to recognize not African Americans, but descendants of slaves.
Legally and on paper, they are not being represented.
And to pay reparations for that slavery.
Most people look at that as a negative. They say, oh, here they come again and want some more welfare. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Only by addressing the original sin of slavery, Shelton says, can Louisville, Kentucky, and the country reverse discrimination, violence, and despair now gripping our cities.
That's why we see all these killings and murders in the West End and so much crime and violence. And
I believe that change is necessary sometimes.
amen.
While some may dismiss these sights and sounds, Shelton is sure that his grassroots group will grow into a larger movement that will sweep the country.
I see this as being as large as the American Civil War.
One believer at a time. I'm Dwayne Pullman, WLKY News.
Shelton is running against State Senator Gerald Neal. Neal is the first African-American man elected to Kentucky's Senate and has served in the state legislature longer than any other African-American. Later in the month, we'll focus on both candidates.
Why aren't you the landlord?
There you have it, family. Let me get back to the First Lady. There you have it. ADOS derived out of Doas. And I am here to tell the truth because it is truth that shall set you free. Well, it set me free. It set me free. And I am just so eternally grateful that that visit by Mr. Gerald Higginbotham has morphed into me being able to put my resources and my energy behind the unsung hero and shero of the reparationist movement. This feels like such the best use of my voice and my demand for the reparations for our people that, oh, by the way, Biden has this justice plan that they want to do like a Jim Clyburn. This is coming. I'm not involved in the First Lady. I'm just doing like I do off my dome. He's got this justice plan where he is intending to give away our repair on these class-based policies that don't fix race. That's another show. It's coming, where we're going to go over this justice plan that they're in a hurry to weaponize the likes of George Floyd against the ADOS to make it all racism in the country. You know, like how Narcan and Cobra are trying to do with Sheila Jackson Lee in that HR 40. Miss Parks said something incredible on Be the Power. It's not time to study reparations. It's time to do reparations. So that show is coming where I'm going to put the dots together about Jim Clyburn's 30-20-10 plan that pretty much gives our reparations to this poor people's campaign that we're being masked under. First Lady, would you like to speak to that while we're on the subject? I see you waving that brilliant book. Go for it. Oh, let me unmute you. I'm sorry. Lord.
That's okay. Dr. Norris has already introduced the Renaissance Plan, which is a guideline and pathway of understanding and comprehension of how we can receive our reparations in America. But let me get back to something, because we want to put things in context. And ditto to everything that you have stated, my sister, and you've stated it so eloquently. That video was right on time, because it's one thing you can't argue with, and that's facts. You just can't,
Amen.
And you can't argue with truth. You just can't argue with it. And so, it's important that we understand two key things. Number one, our true identity as descendants of American slaves in this country, or members, we are members of the American slave culture that date back 400 years to 1619. We must understand, before we can truly receive our reparations in America, America has to understand our true birthright in America. It's about our birthright. Once we receive our birthright, then the money will come. Our reparations will come. They are on the way. We deserve them. Our labor force of American slavery, which was a business, a very lucrative business in America. We were commodities. We were products.
We were
We
chattel.
did not come here. Go ahead.
We were chattel.
Absolutely. We did not come here on a friendly vacation line cruise line ship. We were brought here on a slave ship, our ancestors, in 1619. We did not see the Statue of Liberty as immigrants have seen. We saw the slave block, the slave master, the slave seller, and the slave breeders. We were products for profit, as you stated, chattel, commodities. And so we've got to understand that first. The money is going to come. We're going to get the money. We're going to get it. I truly believe this. In our lifetime, my sister, we will see our reparations, no doubt. But we must first receive our true birthright through legislation, through our United States government. We must be classified. We must be duly classified through the census. Right now, we're all over the place. We're Black, we're colored, we're Negro, we're African American, we're minorities. This is no longer making sense in 2021. If we can be all these other names, why can't we be our true birthright name? Descendants of American slaves. That's so important that we classify that first. And Dr. Shelton explains all of this. That was the purpose of him forming American Slaves Incorporated and writing this first book that he wrote in 2005 entitled America's Little Black Book. It was written in 2005. If I said 2001, that was a mistake. and I want to correct that. But this book was actually written in 2005. But ASI, American Slaves Incorporated, was founded and incorporated in 2001.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you didn't do anything wrong. You were correct. I was asking about American Slavery Inc. and when it was established to connect the dots to how ADOS even became a hashtag. I want my
Correct.
audience to understand, since certain people aren't into giving credit where it's due. In the same way, we've been deceived about the origins of even the hashtag from a said body that says they don't even know who Dr. Shelton is. And all the while, he's getting doctorates from the very church where we've had our inaugural conference. These are the same people who won't give credit to the leaders and the founders of the movement that the hashtag in political education inspired. And so don't come in my feed talking about Angela, let's let it go and get back to work. How about you go over to their shows and tell them to stop throwing chairs, which they're still throwing to this day, because I deserve a right to defend my voice, my brand, and my comrades. So I see y'all in my feed, not here. I'm talking about in Facebook, Twitter. Angela, stop. Just get back to work. Let me help you with something. I don't take a break from this work. I wake up with this movement on my mind. I go to bed with this movement on my mind. So I don't stop working just because I choose to infuse my show with the truth, to give credit where it's due. And that's what this show is going to be on and has always been on. And I'm always working. This is the work. It's bad enough when our oppressors change the history to miseducate this country and the globe. And I'll be darned on a Sunday, and out of respect for the First Lady, if I'm going to participate in pretending like we don't have these unsung sheroes and heroes undergirding everything we're doing right now. So with that said, First Lady, I want to get into some of the other questions I have for you. Do you have a little bit more time? I was going to try to go with you for a few more minutes if you can bless me with that. I want to share something. I do want to jump to the incorporation of American Descendants of Slavery by Dr. Norris Shelton on October 3rd of our inaugural conference, for you to give some explanation of that. Let me pull that up. I'm sharing the screen. Hold on. And then I'll let you speak on it, because I'm getting a lot of questions as to why did he incorporate during our inaugural conference. Because let me see here. I want to make sure y'all can see this. Okay. All right, yes. Okay. Press escape. Okay. I hope you guys can see this. It's this here. Let me get back to it so I can read it. Forward. There we go. Okay. I have to blow it up on my end. Let me see here. Control. So here we have here the Commonwealth of Kentucky, American Descendants of Slavery, Inc., Division of Business Filings. Okay, American Descendants of Slavery. That's what Yvette created a hashtag ADOS around. So here it's already, I mean, he's already filed the paperwork on it. So This was done on October 3rd, 2019. This is in Kentucky, Louisville, where our inaugural conference was held at the very St. Stephen's Church that gave Dr. Norris Shelton his honorary doctorate degree. I want you, First Lady, while I have this up on the screen, I want you to share about why he chose to incorporate it and what happened when Dr. Kevin Cosby gave him the honorary doctorate. Can you share with us about that?
I will try to share as much as I can with you. I don't know what was in mind of Dr. Cosby per se when he had the American Descendants of Slavery conference when you all came to Louisville, Kentucky. I was out of town at the time, so I couldn't attend that conference. We knew about it, and it raised eyebrows. And so we knew we had to act quickly to preserve our brand, which is American Slave Incorporated, and also Descendants of American Slaves. And we have a paper trail on the Commonwealth of Kentucky Secretary of State website. So we knew we had to do that to protect the interest of the American slave culture led by Dr. Norris Shelton in Louisville, Kentucky. So it was business. It was a business decision that we had to make.
Yes, ma'am. Can you share with the audience about Dr. Kevin Cosby granting him a honorary doctorate? Can you delve a little bit more into the relationship of him and Dr. Kevin Cosby, please?
All right. And that meeting occurred, can you hear me?
Yes. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see you.
All right. The story was shared to me by Dr. Norris Shelton, and it's also included in the book PhD in the Ghetto. If you really want to know the relationship that was created, in most of his books, he talks about Black pastors and their leadership in the Black community. But in PhD in the Ghetto, he has an exclusive content in the book that talks about his relationship with Dr. Cosby, the meeting that took place that convened at St. Stephen Church back in 2017, 2018. And Pastor James Elliott set up that meeting between Dr. Norris Shelton. At that time, he was the businessman and writer, Dr. Norris Shelton, of course. And they sat down and they had a meeting with Dr. Cosby. It was a great meeting, as far as I know. It was a wonderful meeting. Said Dr. Cosby became emotional after he heard about all of the writings that Dr. Norris had written, all of the books that he had written. He became overwhelmed and was so happy about all the information. The next thing that happened is he called Dr. Norris over the phone and said, "We want to bestow an honorary doctorate on you. Will you receive it?" Dr. Norris said, "Yes, Dr. Cosby, I accept." And I attended the ceremony. It was the Simmons College commencement graduation ceremony. I was there and I witnessed the honorary doctorate being bestowed upon Dr. Norris Shelton at that particular time. And so I didn't know all of the sidebar conversations that took place or all of the things that took place surrounding the doctorate at that particular time until I read PhD in the Ghetto like everybody else. And then I found out what actually occurred in the conversation. And so I don't think that Dr. Cosby was pleased with the information that was shared. But according to Dr. Norris Shelton, one thing, Dr. Norris has a gift for documenting everything. Don't talk to him because he's going to write it down. Anything you say, anything you do in his presence, he's going to document it. He's a documentarian. And he wrote down the actual conversation that they had, and also everything surrounding him receiving the honorary doctorate and how he felt about moving forward, that descendants of American slave was stolen, so to speak. And again, I'm speaking from the perspective of Dr. Norris and the way that he articulated it to me, and it was articulated in PhD in the Ghetto. And I encourage everybody to read that book, along with the other books that I have introduced. And let me also say that last year, Dr. Shelton asked me to launch an educational initiative surrounding American slave history. I jumped right on it because for 5 years, I taught social justice and civil rights courses at Bellarmine University. And we also got on the phone with Bellarmine and proposed to them that the course we taught, due to COVID, we weren't able to teach it right at that point at the Bellarmine campus. And so we launched an online academy, American Slave History Education Inaugural Academy, and it was a success. And we're working on launching another one and possibly a YouTube educational academy as well. Now, why am I sharing this? This is important because only through the books and the documentation and the facts that you have uncovered, the truth that you have uncovered, will we all be able to move forward in a unified group, individuals, human beings. Will we really be able to declare our true birthright and identity in the United States of America? We can't do it divided. We must come together.
Yes, ma'am.
We must come together. And so I'm not into, I want to go on record, I'm not into bashing anybody. I have all the respect in the world for Dr. Kevin Cosby. He is an institution builder, which is why Dr. Norris Shelton and Pastor James Elliott went to him in the first place. So we want to continue this institution of the American slave cultural movement in America. We want to move forward. We invite Yvette, Antonio, you, and others, and any other coalition that want to work with the American Slaves Incorporated cultural movement. We're not trying to bash anyone. We want to bring this thing together for our people.
Yes, ma'am. And that's been the sentiment I have been infused with from the time Hassan Powell of NAASD, the newly formed movement, okay? From the time she texted me about an interview with Dr. Shelton, it's been nothing but love and inclusion and an appreciation. An appreciation, things that we haven't experienced under our old leadership. An appreciation of everybody's voice and contribution. So I get that, you guys have nothing to do with the axe I have to grind. And I'm healing. It's been a 2-year kind of healing, and being able to take the muzzle off of what's been happening is liberating me. So I use my platform to liberate my voice, and those are my comrades who are in the trenches doing the work. I am using my show and my voice to tell the truth. and to help us understand how we got here, because it is that rich history that undergirds everything we do and is the wind beneath our wings to keep going. When we see great examples like yourself and great examples like Dr. Norris Shelton, Gerald Higginbotham, continuing to press forward with the foundation you've laid, all the while protecting yourself as you should, it gives me the strength to keep going on. And with that said, I want to shout out Dr. Norris Shelton, who just put so much love in my Cash App that he pretty much paid for the books that I just purchased. Oh my God. That's the love that I've been receiving from First Lady and the father of the Reparationist movement. I can't outgive him. I can't outdo him. He's already talked me up to his board. And I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but I know I have found my home in telling the truth about the First Lady and the father of what we do. And I'm just eternally grateful. I was going through my list to see what other questions I could get you to answer. I know that you just pretty much said, listen, I just want to come on here and talk about the doctor. But was there anything else you wanted to address from the questions I sent you that you wouldn't mind responding to? I had so many questions. I don't want to pull you and cross lines, and I can go on my tirade when I free you for your rest of your day. I still have an hour to go. But was there anything else that you wanted to talk about that you feel are within the confines of speaking strictly to the American Slavery Inc., Dr. Norris Shelton's work, your work? I promised I would keep you in that cocoon of things to address.
Well, I just want to have an educational moment again, if you don't mind.
Oh, please indulge us.
Most of us that are in this movement, and you're one of them, and you're great. Thank you so much for having me on the show to talk about the incorporation of American slaves, incorporated the American slave culture and descendants of American slaves, and also American descendants of slavery that all goes back to the hierarchical structure of American slaves incorporated. The slavery movement, well, actually, it all began August 19th, 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, when we were brought to America as slaves. We have been celebrating the American slave's birthday, August 19th, 1619, the day 20 slaves arrived in America. Okay, this is somewhat misleading because tracing American slaves' existence, in parentheses, the DNA, the Civil War began April 12, 1861, with the firing upon Fort Sumter. Okay, it ended April 9th, 1865, with the surrender of General Robert E. Lee. Okay, at the Appomattox Courthouse to General Ulysses S. Grant. Now realizing that slavery was the womb through which American slaves were birthed, the day American slaves were physically birthed from America's womb into America's economic society. According to how America celebrates birthdays, August 19, 1619 is America's slaves' insemination birthday. April 9th, 1865 is their biological birthday. July 3rd, listen to this very carefully. July 3rd, 2001 is the legal incorporation birthday of the American slave cultural movement in America. That's deep, isn't it?
Whew. It's rich.
So you see, that is why we launched, and I'm the dean of the American Slave History Education Academy. Dr. Shelton is the president and the founder. The academy is under the structure of American Slaves Incorporated. We have a structure. We have a corporate structure. Okay, we are incorporated. We're not just out here talking and spouting off about what we think or what we feel it should be or what the emotions are. We're talking about facts. And we're talking about the importance of not only celebrating our true identity and birthright in America, our rights as human beings. You see, the Constitution did not designate us as human beings. The question is, has that been solved yet? Are we human beings under the Constitution of the United States? Why am I saying this? We don't have time to bicker. We've got to get to work so that we can truly obtain, demand our identity and our birthright in America. This is my passion. This is in my heart. This is in my soul. This is not something that I'm trying to run for political office for. It has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with is truth. We must face the truth of our culture, our ancestry, our true identity and birthright in America. And Madam, I'll yield the floor. Back to you.
I could just listen to you all afternoon. Can you please tell me the name of the social justice church that was founded in case people want to tune in? Are you guys doing the church services live down there in Louisville, Kentucky? Because many of us tied to Dr. Kevin Cosby, St. Stephen's Church, but he's doing, exceptionally well monetarily. I'm sure my audience would love to know the name of the church featured in the video clip that I showed, which is our first American slave church.
Correct.
And how they can tune in and how they can give and tithe into that. How do we do that? I'm going to type it in the chat.
Dr. Gerald Hickenbotham, our Prime Minister, has a service online. As you know, COVID-19. We are living in the new world of normalcy. And so due to this pandemic, we've had to adjust to a lot of new things in the way that we are being educated, in the way that we communicate, in the way that we worship, no matter what religion you worship. And again, Dr. Norris talks about the spiritual enslavement piece, okay? And America, the right to the freedom of religion, and how all of that impacted us also as the American slave culture. We have to unlearn to relearn our true history. It's very, very serious. But Dr. Higginbotham, Reverend Dr. Higginbotham, does the American slaves worship service online on Facebook. Hit him up. Okay, he does that every Sunday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, which is what, 9 o'clock Pacific Time? Possibly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
9 o'clock Pacific Time. And so he does a fascinating, wonderful American slave church service every Sunday online on Facebook.
Okay. And do you guys have a PayPal or a Cash App? If
Yes, we
people
do.
want to give, well, and
Yes,
does he
we
have
do.
that?
It is
Go ahead.
it is on the website.
Okay.
Go
on the
back
website,
to
and that
www.
website, let me put that website. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm typing.
Okay. And then I've got one more thing I got
www.slave-usa.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hold on.
You can become a member on there. You can become a member of ASI on there. You can join our organization, either as individuals or as groups. Okay. You can give a charitable donation on there, as well as purchase the books and materials. All right. But also on April the 9th, 2021, we are launching the American Slaves Family Reunion. You're the first show that I've stated this on. Dr. Norris told me today to make sure that I announce that.
I love it. And where can we find more information?
More information is going to be posted on the website. We are in the planning process right now. Have you ever heard of Dr. Donald Evans?
Name is very familiar.
Dr. Donald Evans is the founder of the African American Family Reunion. He is on the planning committee, as I am, Dr. Norris Shelton, Pastor James Elliott, Dr. Gerald Higginbotham, and there will be others. We are inviting other groups, and also like yourself, to join us in this planning process for this national, really and truly, it's going to be a global meeting of all descendants of American slave organizations, groups. It doesn't matter what the name of your group is. If it says African American something, that's fine. If it says Black Lives Matter, whoever, NAACP, National Action, then we want all the groups, including American Descendants of Slavery, Yvette and Antonio, all the other groups that have an interest in our American slave culture, to join us. It's a national dialogue. We've got to come, family, come home. Let's don't fuss and fight. Family, come home. And let's have a truth and reconciliation with each other. Come home. So more information regarding the reunion, the American Slave Family Reunion, Descendants of American Slaves Family Reunion are forthcoming. But you're the first show that I've announced this on.
Breaking news. I love that.
Hopefully it will go viral. Hopefully.
Yes, well, I'm hoping that my illustrious audience will put the thumbs up to help the algorithms on this show, and like me over in YouTube and share, subscribe, the whole 9 yards.
And it will be a Zoom. It will be a Zoom meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing and breaking the news here first. I wanted to ask before I let you go. We have been meeting with other grassroots in our newly formed movements and the way we move in a new direction. And we recently here in California came up with an ethnicity bill that's going through the process right now, where we identify as Black descendants of American chattel slavery. There was another meeting with Reparations Over Everything, which is another collective of grassroots. They came up with Black American descendants of chattel slavery. Now we're pushing for this ethnicity that you are in agreement is needed before we can get the justice claim. My question to you is, have you guys started an ethnicity bill that we may want to reconsider what we're doing, to roll what we're doing up into the efforts of you founding members of the Reparationist movement? Do you have an ethnicity bill out there? And what's it called?
Let me say this. In Louisville, Kentucky, we have been trying to push legislation through the Louisville Metro Council and the State House to push a reparations economic recovery bill. All politics is local. I know that there's been several cities and states, I believe South Carolina, California, I know the assemblywoman out there had the governor to sign a declaration, an executive order to again study reparations. Since they're so eager to study, we need to seize this opportunity and create a national bill. I don't know if you want to call it ethnicity, so to speak, but it's all written out in Dr. Shelton's books as to how to go about that. His recent book talks a lot about that. The legislation that was submitted in this recent book, Spiritual Enslavement of the American Slave Nation. But we have several versions of legislation that we are working on. I tried to reach Sheila Jackson Lee. I know Sheila Jackson Lee because I met her at one of the National Action Network legislative conferences that they have in Washington, D.C. COVID-19 kind of slowed things down because I don't think they had one last year or the year before. The last one I attended was 2018. But again, we've got to get all our ducks in the row, so to speak, in terms of the language. I think we need uniform language as to what we say when we're saying an ethnicity bill. Okay, I know about that, and I'm not knocking it at all. Not at all, not at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good thing. But I think what we've been doing is merging the language, because I know that in Washington, D.C., there was a Recovery Act that they have been trying to push for quite some time. And so I just think we need to pull all of these ideas and these perspectives and, together into one bill that we can submit to our legislators in the House and also in the Senate.
Now, what would you like to see us identify as? Descendants of American slaves, or descendants of American slavery as in the institution?
I don't think that part makes a whole lot of difference. However, Dr. Shelton's preference is that we classify ourselves as American slaves, because that is our birthright. But what you run into is individuals that are not familiar with his material say, slave, I'm not a slave, oh. And so they kind of shun away from that. And so I think that the descendants of American slaves pretty much nails it. That way people can kind of understand, oh, descendants of American slaves. And then from there, people understand that they are members of the American slave culture. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to speak with my comrades about what we can do, because one of the reasons why I'm married to it is because it honors the work of Dr. Norris Shelton. And we can, in doing this as our new identity, always pay homage to the father of the reparationist movement in a way that we're all newly discovering. And I'm all about, lifting up our fearless leaders who teach us the history about who we truly are and the reparations we are truly owed. Go ahead, Dr. First Lady. Go ahead. You had your finger up.
Okay. Ditto to everything that you have stated. And so therefore, that's going to be the purpose of the American slave family reunion. Descendants of American slave family reunion, because all of us are going to come together with our different ideas and perspectives. We want all voices at the table, okay? Knowing that this is the Bible, America's little black book, okay? And that the Renaissance plan is also a guide to us creating the ultimate reparations plan that we want to submit to our legislators in Washington, D.C., that ultimately will result in our people receiving their reparations. I know there's a lot of definitions out there and a lot of ideas and perspectives as to how that should roll out. But it's just like with the stimulus plan that President Biden is talking about. It's a lot of generic terminologies within that plan as well. Senator Bernie Sanders. A lot of people have a lot of different ideas and perspectives on how to benefit the American culture, but we want to be included as a special class because we are descendants of American slaves, and we are the only culture that has not received its true birthright in America and its true identity in America. And that's why we're demanding that we receive ours sooner than later.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I was trying to go through to see if there was any, questions of you while I have you here before I let you say your closing words, which it's just so rich to know the truth, and to be able to say, I apologize. Prime Minister Gerald Higginbotham, forgive us. We knew not what we were doing when we looked at you sideways when you came to our meeting. We sorry. I apologize. Okay.
Oh no, he's a very gracious gentleman. And once he sees your show, he's going to be so happy and thrilled. He's been a long time as well. He understands, and so he's not going to hold it against you, not at all. Well, this movement is not about getting at the truth. I guess I should say, getting at the truth does not have to be an exercise in throwing darts at each other.
Amen.
It should be an exercise in us all coming together as a people. Our ancestors suffered from slavery, the most brutal business that ever occurred on American soil. They said 9/11 was, but of course you and I both know that's not true. It was slavery, the business of slavery. It's so painful to talk about, you know. But if you separate the pain, yes, if you separate the pain and the emotion from it, and we get right down to the business of understanding that it was a business, breeding us was a business. They bred us just like they bred horses and dogs and cats or whatever, you know, to make money. And it worked. It was the most lucrative business in America. It went sideways on them, though. When they bred children that looked like you and me and many others. Some of us, they educated, some they didn't. You know, reading was illegal, you know, for us. And I think that I said this in the last show with Be the Power, that that's a lot of the reason that we feel that descendants of American slaves don't read as much. And then, of course, social media. And again, social media is a wonderful thing in its place. Okay. But we've got to get back to reading and understanding the true essence and the true history of our culture. The only way to do that is through reading, is through writing and reading and learning. And the only person really who can truly say that he's the father of American slave history is Dr. Norris Shelton. And First Lady of Reparations for Slavery is teaching it. And so I'm very, very happy about that blessing of being able to do that. And as we expand, we're going to have other faculty to teach the course as we move forward, because I'm going to be so busy moving forward that I'm going to be involved in other things. Who knows, on Capitol Hill, trying to push this legislation for reparations. So, but we're going to continue to work together, my sister. It's been a pleasure being with you today. It just has.
It really has been so rich. I want to thank you so much on behalf of me and my co-hosts, my audience. Thank you. Gerald Higginbotham was actually in watching and chatted greetings to you, First Lady. So he's actually watching. Dr. Shelton, thank you for the generous donation to me that like I said, I can't even outgive you if I try. You've given us so much, and you can trust and believe now that I know the truth. I will be using my voice to continue to spread the truth to the nation and the world about your exemplary work. I want to thank you, First Lady, for giving up your time and your energy to this live today. We bless you. We love you. We are praying God's protection over you and the entire founders of this movement. And I look forward to working with you again, my sister. And I look forward to having you back when it's time to roll out the big family reunion. I look forward to doing whatever I can to make that go viral. So thank you once again. You make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your day. I'm going to let you go. I've got some other topics to discuss with the family, but I can keep you on in the lobby if you just want to be here to listen to me talk throughout the rest of the show, or you can jump off and join me at YouTube at Friends of ADOS TV, whatever you choose. Your wish is my command.
When will your video be posted?
I can share the link. Usually when I finish, it renders, after the live, and there'll be a link. So what I'll do is I'll send you the link via email so you can watch it at your leisure. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. God bless. And I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, family. Was that not rich? Was that not rich? I'm still riding high. I don't even know. Let me get into the rest of the show. I won't belabor. I hope y'all have y'all libations because I got to speak on this other piece about doxing. And I need to share a very, very short video of how this can be deadly. I'm bringing this up because the ADOS HQ hijacked the assembly to expose their names. And now people that are within the assembly and even outside of the assembly have been getting harassing phone calls at their workplace, harassing phone calls at their homes. And so I want to share my screen with you to show you how this almost cost the life of a 17-year-old boy, of a woman doing similar advocacy. And yes, I need you to make it go viral because you guys don't know the mental wellness or sickness of the people who follow Yvette and Tone. We don't understand about how deep the stooges and the minions run within that organization that I'm grateful to no longer be a part of. I'm moving on. If you want to work, hit me up at friendsofadostv@gmail.com. If you want to throw chairs, stay over there. That's not what I'm doing in the new movement that's being rebirthed through the founders, which are the chapter leaders of the ADOS movement. Many of us have defected from the HQ, and we're seeking to build under the NAASD. That's the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. Okay? So thank you to all of you who have volunteered, because this is the real work. I would venture for you to ask Yvette for the body of work that she brings to the movement, besides the political education and the hashtag that inspired the movement. We are the founders, okay? And so now they're coming for us continuously. I thought that my 3-hour vid about it was going to stop all that nonsense, but now my comrades are sharing with me my picture being featured everywhere to be the next target of their hate campaign. But I'm here to tell you I'm not the one or the two for it. Okay? You don't want this smoke. You don't want it. Now, y'all continue to try to resurrect the bee. Y'all trying to do that. You have to understand, I'm from the west side of Dayton, Ohio. Okay? So don't let the education and the professional acumen, okay, and the everything that makes me who I am, the King's English, don't let it fool you. Don't let it fool you. Don't let it put you to sleep. So anywho, enough of that. But this is happening to us as a result of coming forward with the truth and unmasking much. And it's dangerous. So let me share the screen and let you hear what happened to a sister who was doing advocacy when the white supremacists started doxing her. Stand by.
most of our audience would find reprehensible. You know, tell us, what does it mean to be doxxed What does it mean to be swatted?
Yeah, we were actually just doxxed again a little over a week ago. But doxing is where you put someone's personal information out on the internet so that people who do not like you can harass you. And often nowadays, for me, it's not only been me, my family, anybody associated with me. My mom is currently getting harassing messages on her phone about me. People, wishing horrible things to happen to me. And so that's doxing, and it kind of creates this general feeling of unsafety. It caused harassment. I've changed my phone number multiple times. And then swatting is an offshoot of doxing, where once you have someone's address, you spoof a phone number from where they live, and you call the police and you make some sort of a threat. And the goal is to send a SWAT team into their house, to have someone, guns out, knock the door in. People have been killed from this because someone unsuspecting doesn't understand why a cop's banging their door and reaches for a phone. People think it's a gun. So last year, our home was swatted. I was actually out of town, so my 17-year-old son was asleep alone. And I got a call saying there was a report of shots fired in my home. And it was someone pretending to be my son, saying that he had murdered his parents. And the goal was to actually target my son and send SWAT teams in the house. Luckily, I knew that we were at risk because I knew we had been doxxed. So at least they called me and told me they were going before 6 officers with guns showed up, and 6 officers with guns did show up and pull my son out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. But nobody broke the door down. At least they knew there was a chance that everything was going to be okay, because I got to talk to them. But I was literally across the country trying to board a plane home and wondering if my son was going to get shot. And from then on, it was regular, terrorism at our home. And the goal is to create violence and to use this against Black people, to utilize police violence against Black people. That is the goal of this technique. And so it was very painful and scary. It is something that many Black journalists face. It's also something that regular activists of color face all of the time. It's pretty widespread, and police don't, in most jurisdictions, don't actually have a good response to it. So yeah, that's the terrorism kind of you face for being a Black woman in this country who speaks out and takes up space that people believe you shouldn't have.
Going into this new administration,
So, with that being said, know that what you're doing is very risky. It's very risky because you don't know if people are capable of riding so hard for YC and Tone that they literally hack into systems to disclose who the assembly members are, to leak video footage. You don't know, in the wrong hands of the loyalists and the stooges that support the HQ, what it can lead to. And I'm telling you, you might send someone for an assembly member or even chapter leaders that aren't in the assembly, and you might get got. Moving on. I'm in the last few pages of The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America by Shawn D. Rochester. Everything I do over here is to fortify your resolve to this fight. And this fight is getting rather hectic, as we've got people like Jim Clyburn, who sit up here and want to push a 30-20-10 plan that it appears Biden is doing under this Justice for All nonsense that he's on. It's a whole nother show. I got to put that show together to show you how the American descendants of chattel slavery are selling us out to our own government by, instead of standing up for reparations, Jim Clyburn was running from Jamion Fowler, who asked him about reparations, and he pretty much was a hell to the no to reparations. But Bernie Sanders started this 30-20-10 speak. And I'm going to show you, when I put that show together this week, how that benefits poor whites first, Indians and all the other groups second, and that 10% is for you, us. Instead of giving us the reparations in the trillions over multi-generations that we are owed. This is what Clyburn is helping the current administration that 87% went to vote for to do in this new justice claim. So when I read to you, and comment in between, it is to fortify your resolve to make this demand so we can move as a block to weaponize our vote and socialize our suffering. Or else we will be the permanent underclass in the country our ancestors built with their lives. First Lady of Reparationist, Kathleen Parks, just shared with you how our failure is being masked as Joe Biden brings in more immigrants to deny us the justice claim. This is what I mean by how they want to create the problems and they want your vote to be the solution. You create war on the American descendants of chattel slavery, and in your recent speech on your justice plan for all, right? You want this racism for all. That's what y'all did to us when you called us African American. That's Barack Obama, Kenyan and white, descendant of slave owners. Look like us. We ran to the polls and voted twice for that. That's why I constantly tell you that identity and respectability politics must die for American descendants of chattel slavery to thrive. Yeah. It must die for us to thrive because it's masking the failure. So Biden had the unmitigated gall, future show, to say in a speech, he talked about George Floyd and talked about COVID. Then he started throwing in black and brown. And then he tried to give cover to poor white folks. So we're going to go through his, racism vegetable potluck while saying nothing about the reparations, while saying nothing about HR 40, which we know is toothless. So I'm going to make that show plain to tie together all the players that are being instrumental in trying to tether us to the bottom of America like the anchor we currently are. We are the legs of the table all the other groups eat from. We are owed on the low end 104 trillion. Let me read this to you real quick. The nation's mayors on Monday backed a national call for reparations to 41 million Black people, a program that could cost taxpayers 6.2 quadrillion. Me speaking, do I care that it's going to cost them 6.2 quadrillion? Do I care? You create the problems. Slavery, Jim Crow, convict leasing, sharecropping, redlining into environmentally racist communities, the miseducation of ADOS in America with 3 Ks, right? Unemployment, underemployment, the crack epidemic. Yeah, I'm adding that to the 6.2 quadrillion. That's, we got to be able to look at line items, but I'm telling you that the crack epidemic, if you haven't watched it on Netflix, you absolutely must. Wait till you see the government's complicity in how we got to 3 strikes and 2 million black men in jail in the new slavery under the private prison industrial complex. So yeah, crack destroyed our communities. And the government did that too. This pandemic is destroying us. So you got to hear Biden talk about, COVID and George Floyd, all the while setting us up to give our repair to everybody who has suffered racism in this country, akin to Sheila Jackson Lee's HR 40, which Narcan and Cobra are all up and through that for this Pan-Africanist way that they want to give our repair to everybody. And we know class-based policies don't fix race. And we know class-based policies keep us as the legs. We know immigration is being weaponized against us. Back to the text. The U.S. Conference of Mayors released a letter backing a Democratic plan to form a reparations commission to come up with a payment for slavery. That's better than this study that Sheila and her posse want to be paid $12 million. Why? They just got a $25 million pay raise in the COVID relief / federal spending bill / omnibus bill. But they put the COVID on there so that you will be deceived about how little money the people got and how much the special interests and the lobbyists in the foreign countries got. Of that $903 billion that came out as COVID relief, $703 billion went to foreign governments, foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interest groups. While I want to say $197 billion went to the people, all the people. And to date, the oligarchs have lined their pockets with trillions of dollars. Under Obama, we lost 43% of our wealth while he helped to create 1 million white millionaires. Okay. While 43% of us lost the only asset we had, which was our homes. This pandemic is being weaponized against us to give away our reparations while continuing to say we don't have money for that. While the oligarchs pillage and rob the storehouse to wipe American descendants of chattel slavery completely off the monopoly board. So at least these mayors, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, is demanding payments for slavery. Quote, we recognize and support your legislation as a concrete first step in our larger reckoning as a nation and a next step to guide the actions of both federal and local leaders who have promised to do better by our Black residents, said the letter from conference president George Fisher, mayor of Louisville. Senator Cory Booker and Representative Sheila Jackson Lee have introduced legislation to create a commission, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. In introducing her bill to the House last year, Jackson Lee said the commission aims to study the impact of slavery and continuing discrimination against African Americans, there goes that word, resulting directly and indirectly from slavery to segregation to the desegregation process in the present day. The commission would also make recommendations concerning any form of apology and compensation to begin the long delayed process of atonement for slavery. Me speaking, they've already apologized secretly on July 29, 2008. I'll be sharing that along with this when we revisit all of this in an upcoming show. And Sheila Jackson Lee is trying to make our payments nominal at best, and she wants to give it to all Blacks when we are the reparations for the Black immigrants that got here after the 1965 Immigration Act. We get no part of CARICOM, which has no money in it. So she wants to try to make our reparations repair everybody when it's exclusively ours, but the gate is up, okay? So back to the text. before my laptop dies on me. Thank you for watching, one and all. I welcome you. We're nearing the 2-hour mark, so I doubt I'll have a chance to get to your comments. I'll try to do so later, but know that my hands are busy. Know that I'm busy. I got a lot going on with this movement. So let me pick up where I left off. All of this, like I said, is about fortifying your resolve to not only get in this fight with us, but to also aggregate dollars. Equity Advocates PAC, that's www.equityadvpac.com. I am very interested in raising money now to get Tamara Johnson Shealy elected in 2022 to unseat Warnock. So we need to aggregate our dollars over there, because that was stopped. When folks started dragging it, I'm not going to revisit that. That's in the archives. But that is still my fight, is to replace Congress with full-chested reparationists. Because the only way we get it done is to have people who are for it. And like I mentioned to you, the current administration and the CBC, everybody's on immigration and trying to make everybody whole off the reparations. We need to put people in office like the Dr. Norris Sheltons, like the Tamara Johnson Shealys. So give over there and let's get that work done now, because 2022 is around the corner. So anywho, let me pick up the reading. It's just a couple short pages, then I'll pray us out. Black enterprises need the same things that predominantly white enterprises have received for 400 years, which is a local, regional, and national commitment to their growth and continual success, including but not limited to low cost of capital. I say grants, access to important markets, government investment, and government-friendly policies, and reparations in the trillions over multi-generations in the global marketplace. There is more than enough demand within the African American community for Black businesses to flourish and serve as a base for them to expand into various regional, national, and global markets. I've heard many Black people express significant concerns about doing business with Black enterprises. If you have ever had a bad experience with a Black business, remember that, number one, we also have biases as predicated by our white oppressors who created division between us to keep us enslaved. We also have biases against our own businesses, and as such, we tend to attribute localized negative experiences to Black businesses in general. And two, since there are 2.6 million Black businesses in America, our personal experience is in no way representative of the quality of Black enterprises as a whole. I would encourage everyone to apply an equal amount of focus on the massive cost of not doing business with Black enterprises. And remember that most world-class businesses took many decades to reach that status. Me speaking. Many of our Black businesses are sole proprietors. So I'm curious to see what he's talking about. I guess I have to go and find these 2.6 million Black businesses that are corporations that are actually hiring us. I know the likes of Byron Allen, who we were helping with the Comcast to protect our 1866 civil right to sue for discrimination. I don't know of anyone Black that he's really hired. I don't know. I had to see and do a little bit more research before I charge folks with having huge conglomerates to get money from American descendants of chattel slavery while not giving back in the form of jobs and careers. So that needs to be done. That research needs to be done. If anyone has it, please share it with me at thefriendsofADOSTV@gmail.com. But most of I don't know about $2.6 million Black-owned businesses that are in a position to hire. And if they are in a position to hire, are they hiring us? When only about 16 to 18% of us hold advanced degrees. Back to the text. but they did it with significant preferential government support, access to capital, along with unrestricted trade and development in the regional and national markets, all of which were intentionally denied to Black enterprises for hundreds of years. In reality, no business or industry in America has experienced the magnitude of exclusion and economic isolation in terms of length of time and scale on every level vital to growth and success as Black businesses. Despite that monumental level of discriminatory treatment, Black companies, number one, employ about 1 million people across the nation. 2.6 million Black corporations, and we only have 1 million employed. Something's not right about this. Black companies employ about 1 million people across the nation. So either these 2.6 million businesses that he's talking about is comprised of mostly sole proprietors, or they're not hiring people, which means they're sole proprietors. If only 1 million people are employed across the nation, but we've got 2.6 million Black businesses, most of those businesses are sole props, is what this math is telling my brain. And we don't know of those 1 million people that are employed by Black businesses throughout the country, what percentage of those jobs and careers are for American descendants of chattel slavery? Got to use your third eye, family, when you're looking at this kind of stuff. Number two, Black companies are more diverse than all other businesses in America. Out here, I've shared with many of you that you have to speak Spanish just to get a job interview. And when you show up, if you're invited, because our last names keep us out of many interviews, do you find that you're flooding the Indeed, even prior to COVID, you're flooding the market with resumes? Our names are a dead giveaway. And the way they discriminate against us and not invite us to the table. And even once you're there, the very few people at the table are not your social capital. They are the whites and the immigrant social capital to make sure you don't have access. Number three, Black companies have invested enormous resources in the Black community when no one else would. And number four, have not had the predatory and discriminatory relationship that has cost the Black community over $70 trillion of denied and or extracted resources, resulting in 1.4 million fewer businesses, 6 million fewer jobs, and $8 trillion of net worth. Remember that as consumers, even though we spend 98% of our income on non-Black businesses, the mere knowledge of you being Black is enough to trigger, consciously or unconsciously, anti-Black bias, which can dramatically, number one, reduce your prospects of getting a call back for a job, regardless of the quality of your work experience. To my point, this is how Black immigrants are winning in this country. Their names, and they show up and they weaponize their accents against the American descendant of chattel slavery to get those jobs that we are due. We've got people that look like us in office, Kamala Harris, who descend from East Indian Brahmin caste, which is white in her country. We are the Dalits from her country, which is why her record against American descendant of chattel slavery is atrocious here in California, which is why she was coming in fourth in the polls during her own presidential run. They had to sneak her through the back door, akin to what they did to Joe Biden, while the media made more of a racist boogeyman of Donald Trump than the combined races that Biden and Harris make, with a 65-year record against American descendant of chattel slavery. Okay? So even the Black immigrants are using their immigrancy to weaponize it against us, to deny us our justice claim, and then want to come for me and call me a xenophobe for putting a gate up for American descendants of chattel slavery. Not the immigrant allies. You know who you are if you're watching. How convenient it becomes to make us about xenophobia when we start to tear down the decadent veil that masks our failure in this country. The minute we do that and we rise up for American descendants of chattel slavery, everybody has a problem with it. It's like the fussy baby who don't want to come off the tit. They want to keep jumping down your shirt. I speak from experience. These other groups and white folks don't want to let the tick go. But let me help you understand something. When you are about all these other fires, how can you put out your own? We have integrated into a burning building. How do we, unless we talk about it with respect to what's happening, with respect to telling the truth, how do we fix what we refuse to face or what we're shamed into facing? If you don't tell the truth, they continue the lie with these class-based policies that don't fix race. I done told y'all, when Biden gives a student loan cancellations, that's another white wealth transfer. Only 16 to 18% of us have degrees. What about the 82 to 84% of us that don't? When you only tell the Justice Department to stop participating in the private prison industrial complex, you're only talking about 8% of the people who take advantage of Black men and women and children in jail. What about the money that should be going to our schools that you take out of Black public schools to put them in white public schools? What about that? No, because you need the preschool to prison pipeline or whatever epidemic you decide to bring next into our communities to finish us off like you did with the crack. So if I don't unmask it, if I don't move fearlessly in truth to expose the lies, how do we ever move as a block? How do we ever collectively get on the same page with reparations that we are owed in the trillions over multi-generations? If it took 400 plus years to get us here, it's going to take at least 3 times that to get us out. So call me what you want. I've been called worst. Trust and believe. I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. I'm built for this. Second, it increases the scrutiny of your work product and possibly reduce your long-term career trajectory. Increases the likelihood that you will be denied credit for your business, even if your credit profile qualifies you to get the loan. Increase the likelihood that you will pay higher purchase prices and interest rates for cars, even if your credit profile qualifies you for a lower rate. Increase the likelihood that you will have to pay higher interest rates for home and business loans, even if your credit profile qualifies you for a lower rate. Reduces the value of your home in areas where there are too many people who look like you, regardless of their income, wealth, or quality of the neighborhood. Lowers the value of products that you sell online. All of which serves as a massive Black tax that continues to cost African Americans hundreds of billions of dollars each year and devastates our ability to leave a legacy. At the end of the day, the same amount of energy and effort that went into facilitating the current and historical Black tax must be invested in eliminating it and repairing the damage it caused. Given the enormity, longevity, and pervasiveness of this Black tax, we must do as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in 1968 in his now famous "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech, quote, always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. Begin the process of building a greater economic base. Deposit into Black banks. buy from Black insurance companies, redistribute the pain, and strengthen the Black institutions. Now, that's a good point for me to introduce our next book until Dr. Shelton's book comes. Oh, the lights are too blinding. This is Shawn D. Rochester's book, CPR for the Soul, How to Give Yourself a 20% Raise, Eliminate Your Debt, and Leave an Inheritance for Your Children's Children, the Good Steward Financial Empowerment Series. That's his book, The Black Tax, that I'm finishing now. This is what we're moving into until Dr. Shelton's books get here. As part of the Miseducation of ADOX in America with 3Ks book club series. I'm into solutions. What do we do in the meantime? As we die disproportionately from COVID, Black on Black crimes and murders that are a direct result of institutional systemic racism and being robbed of our reparations, and government-sanctioned executions, the COVID, all of these things, we've got to learn how to come out of this over the top. Because right now, far too many of us are losing. And I mean miserably. So that'll be a future show, but get your books and get ready for that read, okay? Until Dr. Shelton's books arrive. Okay, so let's get back to the text. I'm almost done. Begin the process of building a greater economic base. Okay, buy from Black insurance companies, redistribute the pain, and strengthen Black institutions. This is vitally important because, in the words of A.G. Gaston, one of the wealthiest, most successful, and prolific African-American entrepreneur of the 20th century, his book is a part of my book club read and a part of the Become Your Own Economy series. We cannot fight and beg from those we fight with at the same time. That's a quote from A.G. Gaston. I'll let you know what that book is down the road, okay? Therefore, arm yourself with the information and strategies in this book. Use them to create intergenerational change, build a foundation for economic development, provide jobs and income for families and communities. To maximize your effectiveness, you must always remember to, number one, focus on stewardship, ownership, and legacy in your household. Number two, get your PhD. That's purchasing, hiring, and deposits. Number three, encourage others to do the same. Number four, engage and patronize organizations and businesses that have their PhD. And number five, support policies that drive purchasing, hiring, and deposits within the Black community. The time is now, and with your newly acquired PhD and your focus on stewardship, ownership, and legacy, you will be ready to be the architect of a new day and to create a new legacy for your children's children. Once again, pick up CPR for the Soul, Shawn D. Richardson. We're going to segue into doing exactly what he has prescribed in the meantime and in between time. And with that said, family, I want to thank you so much for joining this live today. I want to thank you for going over to YouTube to like my channel, Friends of ADOS TV. We're also the Reparationist Perspective. I'm flirting with the idea of making it Friends of Doas to pay homage to Dr. Norris Shelton's living legacy. That just came to me in my talks with the First Lady of Reparations, Miss Kathleen Parks. That's, God is forever talking and expanding and growing through us, as I always remind each and every one of you at the close of the show. I want to thank you guys for being the wind beneath my wings. Let me just give my banner a little bit while I pray us out. If you'd like to donate to my Educating the Masses and my advocacy work, please visit me at Cash App, $FOADOS TV, and PayPal. Okay, the link is scrolling in the bar. Thank you for those of you who have contributed. I pray you see the works of your donations to my work. I hope you see it in action over here. I want to thank Hassan Powell for this stellar interview with the First Lady of Reparations. I want to thank everybody in New Black Media. We are replacing the mainstream media and educating the masses so we can move as a block to get what we're long overdue. I, like First Lady, believe, like Dr. Norris Shelton, believe this is coming faster than you can blink an eye. And we've got 2 years before the Republicans take back the Congress, which I'm certain they're going to do, given Biden's plans to give citizenship to 11 million illegals in this country before making American descendants of chattel slavery American with that reparations check. Okay? So know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. I thank each of the leaders out there who have chapters and are continuing to do this work despite the upheaval right now. I want to thank you for standing on your square. And with that said, family, let me pray my prayer protection over you, that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Wherever American descendants of chattel slavery and our allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. And with that said, family, you go out here in these streets and you show the world who you really are. And you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your Sunday and work week until I pop up again. Know that I love you black. I love you strong. Peace. Mwah. Good night, family. Good day.